This is the intimate crowd I was hoping for. I think the concept will land very well. Guys, I think what I really wanted to emphasize with this talk was the idea that has come through in a couple of other talks, but it's the entire emphasis of my talk, that Agile is not something like a set of prescriptions that if you practice these prescriptions, you are now Agile. And we're talking small letter agility, not the capital agility, small letter agility, genuine agility, where if something changes, you as a team, organization, department can actually change along with it and suit whatever requirements have come out of the blue. This is what you are really gunning for, then don't go with a bunch of prescriptions. Rather, adhere to a set of principles. You know, principles are at the top of the food chain on the spine model. I don't know if you guys have spoken to the guys or haven't been introduced to the spine model, which says that if you want to align on various details about what you want to do, you have to, if you see a misalignment, go up a level. You go up a level, up through values until you get to principles, and you align on principles. And if you've aligned on principles, then you go back down one level and align on that level, the values. And then you go down one, and then you can ultimately, through alignment at the top, get to alignment at the bottom or at the detailed level. So I think it's the same with Agile. With Agile, what you're dealing with is the outcome of agility is based on whether you are adhering to a certain set of principles that help you to actually be agile. So agile is not a prescriptive process. It's emergent from you being, you adhering to certain principles. So yeah, that's it. 2 years ago, I was here. I was giving a talk about how important it is to actually play language games, word games. I was talking about it from the point of view of a dead philosopher called Wittgenstein. And what he was basically trying to get people to understand is that the only game worth playing is language games, because language is the limit of your whole world. If you want to achieve anything, do not, sort of go at it like a machine. I'm going to work hard and, whatever. What you do first is understand the language behind the task at hand. The language behind the task at hand is the key to success, because when you have the right language, you actually understand what needs to be done. When you don't have the right language, you are basically chasing clouds in the sky and not really achieving anything. And that's where a lot of teams have failed, in my experience over time, where I've found guys who are talking past each other. They haven't decided on what the language of their system is or the language of their teams are. So I want to introduce this idea that pay attention to the language that you are using. Choose a bunch of words that are core to your team and run with that. And obviously review whether that's working for you over time, and then change and use different words if those words are not working for you. So, again, I want to bring that this is part of systems thinking. Systems thinking is the idea that everything we do is part of a bigger system, right? And we create systems as well. When we say we're doing Agile, we're creating a system of getting things done. Do this, and this, and that, and then you get things done, and there's a feedback loop, whether it actually worked. That's the definition of a system, something that actually achieves something and has feedback loops within itself to know whether it actually achieved that. And you want to have useful models for thinking of that. So it's not about whether your model is right or wrong. You want to actually have useful models, models that actually help you think about things as opposed to models that are actually, yes, this was correct or incorrect. No, that's just throw that thinking out of the way. There's nothing that's right or wrong in modeling. In fact, all models are inherently wrong. The question is, are they useful? Were you able to have an insight or an understanding, a better understanding collectively by using that model to think about said system? Right, so now you want to be agile. You're a team, you're there, you want to be agile. Do you go and look at the 4 principles and the 12 values and then adhere to everything in there? Yes, that's one of the models because it is just one of many, but it isn't the be-all and end-all. All of these models will help you get a little closer, and what I'm going to be presenting here is another model. And it says, if you adhere to these 3 things, which I've listed on the board, you will also achieve agility as a team, right? Now, the first most important abstraction that I want to present to you, if you want to truly be agile, is that teams are of fundamental importance. I've watched a lot of anime in my life, and that's the only lesson that ever comes out of there. It always starts out with this one guy, and he's the only one who can do this thing. He's the only one who can save the world. But he can't because he's so alone, and he has this drama, his long, teary moments where he's just like, oh, and then friends come around, and they, work together, and they get this thing done. They save the world. And this is not playing out in the corporate space. What you get in the corporate space is a lot of rock stars, people who've been hired individually. You don't hire teams, right? You hire individuals. So this guy's journey through the company is an individual one, right? And that is pretty much antithetical to agility because all delivery happens as a team. I could never have delivered any of the software that I've, been part of delivering alone. Never. All of it happened at a team level. So the moment you just take the time out to make that switch in your brain that everything that you're doing in Agile is team-based, you are, a lot of the way there. So we did an experiment at the office where to demonstrate this idea. What we did is we took a day off, nobody was doing any work, and we divided ourselves into teams, not the teams that we were currently in, we just chose people by number and said, here's what you're going to do for today. You are going to create a children's book. Here's a bunch of pieces of paper, some coloring books, and each of you is going to produce the 3 Bears and Goldilocks in storybook format with drawings and all of that type of stuff. And there was, sort of the core lesson that came out of that is that everybody had to be part of a team. We didn't know who could draw, when you went into that. So it was a 1-day session. You had 8 hours. You didn't know who could draw. You didn't know who, sort of had done this before. So it was a task that put everybody in there out of their depth. By the way, guys, you can stop me at any time and ask questions. I think I'd prefer it if you did that. Everybody was out of their depth. They just had to do something that they've never had to do before. And the only way it worked was if everybody pulled together. And that's what they did. We actually got quite a few very good products, solid. We had a requirements which the thing must be solid. You can throw it and it won't, sort of fall apart. And we did throw it and it didn't fall apart. So team is just fundamental, and what you get to is that the best teams, and I've studied this quite a bit in my own capacity, the best teams is where everybody's a leader. The moment you have a big dependency on one person to be the one who is saying, no, this is what must happen next, and blah, blah, blah. You're not even agile, are you? That guy is sick for the day when the decisions need to be made. Oh, you're fucked, right? So everybody in the team needs to carry the weight of the team and take it forward. And that's a fundamentally different mentality from the one that I've experienced as I've joined teams over the years. Really, everybody's just been trying to, do their best to do their bit as directed by somebody who said, no, this is what we want to do, And then miraculously, it tends to look like the thing that was asked for, but there's a whole different thing that happens when the whole team says, this is what we want to do as a collective. We recognize each other as entire humans. We know that this person over here is not just, a plug and play piece. This person is a full human with all their drama, their illnesses, their, sort of story where, hey man, my girlfriend is pregnant, I can't come in, or, I just got dumped, my performance is gonna drop, all sorts of dynamics like that are very real in teams, and we always try and abstract that away. But if you have a proper team, like the ones in anime, you know that is real stuff that affects performance. So abstraction number one for achieving agility is think in teams. It's fundamentally important. I've actually even tried to get my managers to think in terms of hiring teams, but that's a dead end, right? So the second most important abstraction when trying to achieve agility is conversation. Conversation is like thinking. We all think we're good at thinking, right? The likelihood is you're not. You're probably pretty bad at it. But can you validate that? It's hard to validate whether you're actually good at thinking or bad at thinking. But some people have, and it's not even an IQ test. It's a question of, achieving your stated goals and stuff like that. And it's the same with conversation. Conversations, we have them all the time in meetings, in ad hoc, in spaces in the corridors. Are those conversations quality conversations? Are you getting the feedback that you need? When you're having, and actually, conversation can be very broad in definition. It's not necessarily just two people talking to each other. The process of putting together specifications and how they evolve over time, that's a conversation. It's an ongoing conversation. The understanding between business and IT as a whole is an ongoing conversation within the organization. If you want to really be good at Agile, you have to start tracking the quality of your conversations, understanding whether the conversation is adding the value that you'd want out of a conversation. And that's actually to the point over there, is that meaning comes out of conversations. You cannot have a meaning that is not emanating from a conversation. Meaning in any space is the result of two people or more getting together and agreeing on what something means. And that meaning is what is going to be then put into the software, right? The software has to have meaning to somebody. There's got to be some end user somewhere who, when they look at that screen, it means something to them. And that came about via a conversation to say, guys, I need this because it means we will be able to do that and blah, blah, blah. So there's a direct correlation between the quality of the conversation that you're having either with business or within the team or with your project management or your managers, that there's a direct correlation between that and the quality of conversation that you produce. If you're having a low quality conversation with your business analysts as a developer, you're going to produce shitty software. Or if your business analyst is having a shitty conversation with your business people, you're going to produce shitty software. There's a direct correlation. It's just not very well measured because nobody's really thinking like that yet.
So you mentioned measurement again now, and I'm wondering how would you recommend we kind of measure or track the overall, not like each individual conversation, but how do you measure the quality of conversation in your company?
Yeah, that is a difficult one. Mostly, it's a human thing. Again, this whole Agile conference has been moving away from hard measures to soft measures. There's going to be new measures around whether things are working or not. Like, do I feel good about it? Did I get a good feeling when I left this meeting? Did I feel like this explained more to me? Those are quality conversations, because I've seen a lot of people leave meetings very frustrated, but we don't address that because we don't address feelings, right? Yes. So it's a fuzzy thing, but you know when you're having a quality conversation and when you're having a shitty conversation. Who's ever walked out of a conversation and not known whether it was a quality conversation or a shitty conversation? You know. But there's things that you can do actively to improve quality of conversations. So you can come into a conversation with a list of things that you want to address. So as simple as an agenda, but sometimes like in Scrum, when they have all of these different staged conversations. In fact, one could think of Scrum as a series of staged conversations. When you read up on Scrum, they say, have a planning. At the planning, answer these 3 questions. At the retrospective, ask these 3 questions and get the answers. These are just staged conversations. So you can, start thinking about conversations in that sense without having the whole, this was prescribed for me up beforehand. You can just start thinking. And there's other models as well, that, like the spine model, as we discussed, that help people have quality conversations. When you see a conflict, go up a level and understand where the misalignment is. Find the misalignment and then come back down and get to the detail. Because anytime you have more than 3 people in a room, the chances are that you will have misalignment. People will have different misunderstandings. And sometimes when you don't, it's because maybe you didn't even really touch subjects, You just assumed that everybody understood the stuff. So I'm not going to give you an exhaustive way of, so you have something? It is definitely, that's exactly the whole point of this. Thank you, you've actually just summed up that section. And we're generally having conversations with more than 3 people. If you think about an organization, it's up to 4,000 people, which are somewhere, somehow, you could actually think of what they're doing as a conversation, So I'm not going to have an exhaustive, understanding of the things you can do to improve your conversations, but if you take it upon yourself to start thinking about conversations as something that you take ownership of and not just, are partaking in as dead fish, things will improve. You will become more agile, right? And then number 3 is the last and by far most important abstraction. It is pretty much how brains work. Downstairs, they were talking about neuroscience and all of that type of stuff. And the truth of the matter is, it's as simple as everything that we do, we only remember it and give significance to it in our hearts and brains and minds and beings when it is part of a story. If it is not in story format, it's just a floating fact. You will lose it. If you want to find facts, if you want to remember things, if you want to relate to something, it has to be part of a story that you relate with. Something you can write yourself into. I am part of this story. So, as an abstraction, if you understand stories, and I think you probably were thinking I was going to talk about user stories. User stories are a small part of it. This is far more, sort of general. Stories, and we're talking about agility again, remember? Stories are the context in which we achieve agility, are the context in which teams achieve what they, said they wanted to achieve. It had to be a matter. Let's tell the story of Agile, like I have over there. That was always the plan. The story of Agile is almost the story of society, of our progression over time. Obviously, we won't start at us making it out of the sea as, like plant life and all. No. We're going to start probably in the industrial age, where things like professionalism started to emerge, where people sat in offices and shuffled about pieces of paper instead of actually building things with their hands. We started out in a very, very, very process-driven way. We had extensive manuals around, this is what you do, then you do it like this, then you do it like job specs were a lot thicker than they used to be now, And now, over time, we've moved to understanding that doesn't particularly work. People need to get out of their corner box office and talk to people. And so they started making open plan offices. And there was huge resistance. I was there. I resisted. I was like, no, I want to be in my little cubicle. I'm showing my age here. I wanted to be in my little cubicle and, sort of work. But then time was saying, no, that's not working for us. We need open plan. We need people to start communicating. And that open plan type of office space was the type of office space that allowed for ideas like, Agile is the kind of, and Lean, actually. Lean is the predecessor of Agile. All of these came about as a result of the need to communicate better. So they started coming up with frameworks for communicating better, and that was Lean and Agile, and all of them are a progression from that heavy process stuff to this, having everything pre-scripted up front doesn't work. We need to be able to deal with unpredictability. And the way to be able to deal with unpredictability is to have better conversations, right? So it's also played out in the world of science. We had Newtonian science, where you could predict anything with Newtonian science. But as it all progressed, you moved on to E equals mc squared, which introduced the term relativity. It's relative. Oh my God, now we're relative, it's not certainty, And then it moved on. Now we're in particle wave theory, and there's this idea, this freaky idea, which I haven't really wrapped my mind around, that, when you observe particles at the smallest level, they react to the act of observation. Like they are affected by the fact that you are observing them. Which is to say, like, it's no longer just science happening in front of you. The fact that you're partaking in it, guys, this is wild. It's wild. Science has moved out of certainty into a story of our interaction with it, right? And that's part of the story of Agile. It's our story of moving away from processes and connecting more, right? I like to think so. And when people hear a story and can write themselves into it, that's how they engage. That's how they feel like, oh, so what I did in my team, I told them the story of operations team within Investec, how we started out with just me and a BA, and we were swamped, and it was fun, and we were getting escalated about everything. And we, started having better conversations about what's going to add more value, added a couple of processes around agility, and now what we're doing is we're adding our unit test code because what we want to achieve is fireworks. Boom, boom, boom. The CEO is coming to you, he's shaking your hand, painting that picture around a progression. That's what a story is, it's a progression, right? Painting that picture and allowing the person to write themselves into that story is how people engage. If people are not, sort of seeing themselves in the story of this team, they're like less likely to engage. They'll be there, they'll come there because they want the monthly paycheck, right? But they will not be engaged. I mean, has everybody seen the difference between somebody who is engaged and somebody who isn't in a team? No? Yeah. And I would argue that in all of those scenarios where they weren't engaged, they did not have a story that they could write themselves into. And in all of the scenarios where they did engage, they understood the story and understood how to write themselves into it. Like, as in, if I do this, yes, then the team will achieve this thing, then the CEO will be walking around shaking our hands and giving us bonuses and all of that type of stuff. And yeah. And you have to think about the story that you are selling, because there's a quality aspect to stories. There's crappy stories that people don't want to be part of, and there's good stories that they do want to be part of. So, yeah, think about the quality of your story. Write one that people want to be part of. It's not boring. Like I said in the last point over there, it helps if you co-create the story, because quite often, if you've already got the story up front, then people find it even more difficult to write themselves into it. But if you co-create the story and say, guys, considering this past that we all share or understand, what is the story that we want for ourselves? Where do we want to see ourselves go? And guys, you have to have imagination. You can't just be coming up with a story of, we want 100% coverage of our test cases. Yo, guys, no, that is boring shit. You have to tell stories that you would want to tell your kids, Even if it's work stuff, you want to be able to say, yeah, we are saving the world. Or, me and my team are saving the bank. That bank was about to become totally irrelevant. But we wrote this app, and this app, oh my God, and you've got to be able to tell, no, that's me. You've got to be able to tell stories like that in order for you yourself to engage. Guys, we live in strange times where we spend 40 hours a week with people we didn't choose. More time than we spend with our family. You know, you have to make that time valuable. And these are some of the things that I do to actually, you know, sort of get value out of that time and make sure that I am not bored to death. I make sure that I think of my team as people whom I love and I'm growing with and I'm on a journey with. I make sure that when we conversate, it is not lip service. You know, it's not just blah, 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 blah. It is genuine conversations. There's actual connection. There's actual shared understanding that you guys are building on over time. And then we're growing together. And then finally, that we all share a story and that we are telling, you know, and creating together at the same time. And I must say, I think I'm having a wonderful time with my team over there. And I think we're incredibly agile without actually ever, you know, sort of going to the Agile manifesto and saying, are you agile? No, we never do that anymore. What we just do is make sure that our 3 of these are covered. And look, we have new requirements coming in all the time. We just have a good conversation about that. We know that, look, if we have a crappy conversation, we're not going to get it right, so let's make sure we get the conversation right, we'll get the requirement right, we'll get the software right. Boom. It's as simple as that. That's my whole story, guys. That's my whole story. There wasn't even really much more to it than that. And I'm hoping that what you can take away from this is that we are people. And these processes don't actually add as much value as understanding that we are people and playing to that rather than playing to the processes and the stuff. And all of this speaks to playing to the idea that we're people over and above the fact that, you know, Agile has these 4 principles and no. Play to these, you'll be fine. You'll be agile. You'll make sure that everybody in the team understands what we're doing, that the business understands because you're having a good conversation with them, you know? And they won't feel, and it worked well with the idea of no estimates, because estimates for what? When you're having a quality conversation. They know exactly where you are. You know, you're not trying to build up this interface of contract that, yes, I said I'm going to do this, and therefore you don't even have to talk to me anymore. You're going to hold me to this contract. No. The conversation that you are having is a growing, you know, organic thing that will add value on a day-to-day basis. Questions? Good timing, Imran. Hmm? No, well, that's how I onboard my team members. Like every time we hire a new guy, I pull him into a room and I tell them the story of operations. And it always starts with gloom and doom. Oh, it was horrible. There were the dark days. Imran will remember. There was like no process and we were being escalated all the time. But now what we are doing is we're doing this and we're doing that. And we've hired you because we want to get to C. And C is this amazing wonderland. You know, I paint that picture for them to say, this is what we'd like to achieve. And that has worked well for me. The motivation factor is never a problem after that. The guy has seen where he fits in to a larger context in story format, which is how brains work, in story format. Your brain works in story format. Things are not in stories, they tend to be lost in your brain. But if they're in stories, they're easy to access. That's just how brains work. Does that make sense?
Follow up on that question. So is it one something, or do you repeat the story at your maybe retrospectives?
It helps. Repetition is very powerful. Yes. Repeat it whenever you feel necessary.
Okay.
Co-create it. As a team, discuss again. What is the goal that it is? What is this journey that we are on as a team? Because the journey is what's going to make sense of the individual activities. Then you're going to know why I need to write these tests. You're not going to write them because Sizwe said you must write them. You're going to write them because, okay, if we want to achieve Happy Wonderland, these tests need to be written. I'm not chasing after people to write tests. They're coming to me and telling me, Sizwe, I feel like we need to test this better. So I'm going to spend some time on that. And I'm, okay, go for it. It's fuzzy. I don't really care. Yes, that's me. I'm not even really interested in any of that. Like the roles, all of that. It's fluff. It doesn't matter what role you are in, because again, you go back to team. The whole team needs to be driving this whole understanding, these three abstractions. And the quality of the conversation. So I don't put much store in the different roles. We're on a journey around that in terms of helping ourselves take more ownership of just getting the software out instead of, hey man, I'm a BA, I'm gonna do analysis and that's all I'm gonna do. No, that's not what we're here to do. We're here to ship quality software. And in order to ship quality software, there's a whole bunch of things that need to be done, but it doesn't matter who does it, as long as it gets done. And yeah, I feel if you adhere to these three things, without really getting into the details of who is doing what, you could get quite a lot of quality software out. So, okay. I have questions for you guys. Do you guys think this makes any sense? Do you think that it's something that you could take back to your organization and say to them, guys, did you get any actionables out of this? The girls are nodding, guys. Guys? look, we're an agile house. We call ourselves an agile house, but being a big corporation, it's fuzzy. There's project managers, so are we really agile? If there's project managers, so it's fuzzy, but we like to think we're agile. I needed to abstract away from all of the little details and get to the core valuable things that make agility actually happen. Did you get an actionable out of this? You wouldn't know what to.
I got an answer out of what I just asked them. So before you implemented or came up with these abstractions, there was certainly a preferred framework or
We actually do use Scrum and Kanban. So we use Scrum and Kanban in the most, sort of vanilla sort of way. What I'm talking about here are abstractions that helped us as a team actually be agile, or in fact, let me put it like this. There's an architect, the head architect at Investec. He's a lovely guy. And he keeps talking to us about the cargo cult. The cargo cult was something that happened during wartime where these guys built a base on an island. There were natives on that island, right? And those natives used to see these planes dropping food and everything. And they were like, oh my God, food just coming out of the sky. And so they started building grass plains in order to attract these gods. So that was their understanding of that. They had a cult based on not understanding what was happening. And you get that a lot in teams that are practicing Agile. They go into a retrospective, for instance, without really understanding why a retrospective is helpful or why they must have a retrospective at all in the first place. It's actually because it was prescribed by Agile. And then they go in there and they like answer the questions, but are they really practicing Agile if they didn't understand the why? Like, if you go into a room and answer all the questions of a retrospective as prescribed by sort of the Agile handbook or the Scrum handbook, does it mean you're practicing Agile? Possibly not. You don't understand what it is that it's supposed to achieve. Maybe one person does, but what we really want is that everybody in the room fully understands, why these things are happening. And for me, like I said, if you start at these core abstractions, guys, the reason we need to have retrospectives is because teams are important. Quality conversations are important. Understanding your shared story is important. At the very, very core, then, people are going to walk into retrospectives with a whole different mindset. It's a whole different mindset that you walk into a retrospective with.
So did you create these abstractions or
Yeah.
were they formulated?
No?
And what about other teams? Do they share the same sentiment or do they practice their own?
They haven't promoted me yet to the point. Imran will sort that out soon over there. I don't appreciate that sarcastic laugh, Imran. But yes, I'm trying to sort of implement these things within my team, and I think I am getting quite a bit of success. The team is gelling very nicely. They are thinking in team mode. They are not, there's no rock stars who are out to shine for their own. They understand that all delivery happens at a team level, and they are pulling together as a team. And the story, they understand the story, and they're playing to the story. So, like I said, the benefits of that is that I don't have to sit around telling people what to do. They have the bigger picture. They know that these are the things I have to do in order for us to achieve that. They've written themselves into the story. and our conversations are improving. That is the hardest part. Conversations are hard and actually also very tiring. Planning days, retrospective days, I'm bushed at the end of the day. Yeah, yeah. But yeah. Yes. So, no, 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 I know exactly what you're asking, and I do have the answer. You're just not going to like it. Look, there's a finite amount of energy in any room. When you meet a bunch of people in a room and you close the door and you say you're going to have, there's usually a finite amount of energy. People are sitting there waiting to be directed and all of that type of stuff. What if you want to have a quality conversation? You need to pump energy into the room. You need to bring excitement. You need to, be the lively character who allows the other people to loosen up, who gives them space and makes them feel comfortable enough to let loose. If you are also sitting there all serious and drab and running through the steps one by one, you're not going to get any joy. So it's a very, again, human approach, understanding that people feed off of other people, and you have to feed energy into the room if you want to get a lively conversation. And that's why you will be tired if you've had a good conversation. You will have, sort of had to pump energy in, and then the other people start pumping energy in, and then that energy is what actually creates the good conversation. But there's got to be that guy most of the time who starts pumping energy into a meeting. These are human dynamics. These are, it's not, there's no equation for this stuff. Maybe somebody will come up with it at some stage. But right now, what we're dealing here is simple human dynamics. You need to pump energy into people to get them, livened up and engaged. Wow, that's all, guys. Oh, no, it's not. Don't get up, don't get up.
One last thing, going back to what you're saying, that how do you get teams to engage? I once had that whereby you get into a retro, you start engaging people, people are just sitting there looking at you, they don't want to talk. So that happened like 2, 3 occasions, and I started having like one-on-ones with the team because we was a fairly new team. So I understood that for them to start talking, they also have to trust you as well as a Scrum Master before they can start opening up. And then once I had one-on-ones with them, I found that previous Scrum Masters that they've had, they've raised the same issues over and over and over, but no action is taken, so they feel like, what's the point of us talking about things? And then you also find that amongst the team themselves, there is no trust. So, yeah, but once you get to know what the issues are, you can still raise them anonymous because you want to say, okay, Lusanda raised this, and say, okay, what do you guys think about this? I've observed this, how do you tackle it? Then it start goes on there. And when they start trusting you as well, then they start opening up.
That's all I had to say, guys. Thank you for attending. I'm going to go shout at the other people who said they would and didn't. Thank you very much.